The night she was told her life amounted to nothing, Dr. Emily Hartman simply smiled. Her family called her a failure, a woman wasting her best years chasing theories that would never matter. What they did not know was that, across the city, a team of scientists waited for her command, and that the institute her parents praised so proudly had her name carved into its marble walls. This is not just a story about success. It is about silence, dignity, and the quiet power of being underestimated. The summer air in Connecticut shimmered like glass, pressing against the tall windows of the Hartman family home. Inside, laughter and conversation swelled in warm, overlapping waves. The scent of baked apples and cinnamon floated through the living room, where silver trays of hors d'oeuvres gleamed beneath soft chandelier light. Every corner of the house pulsed with the easy confidence of people who believed their lives were unfolding exactly as planned. Emily stood near the drink table, fingers tracing the rim of a glass she had yet to sip from. To anyone looking, she was simply quiet, perhaps shy, perhaps thoughtful. In truth, she was listening. "Andrew's saving lives already," Uncle Richard announced from across the room, his voice rich with pride. "Second year at Johns Hopkins. Imagine that." There was a round of approving murmurs, a small ripple of admiration that traveled effortlessly across the room. Linda, her mother, beamed. "We're so proud. A real job, a real impact. That's the kind of work that matters." Her father, Ethan, chuckled, swirling the amber in his glass. "Not everyone can spend forever in a lab hoping lightning strikes." The words were light, dressed in humor, but they landed with precision. Emily's lips curved into a faint smile, polite, practiced, unshaken on the surface. It wasn't cruelty, she thought. It was certainty, the kind that doesn't ask, just assumes. Her sister Claire drifted over, perfectly put together in soft beige and pearls, the sort of woman who seemed born to fit into her mother's living room. "You've always been the dreamer of the family, Em," she said gently, placing a manicured hand on Emily's arm. "We just worry about you, you know? Stability matters these days. Healthcare's brutal. It's not easy out there." Emily met her gaze and nodded. "I'm fine, Claire." "I know," Claire replied, her smile sympathetic in a way that hurt more than any insult could. "We just want you to be safe, stable, practical." The words threaded through the air like invisible chains. Delicate yet unyielding, Emily looked down into her drink, the golden surface trembling slightly as someone laughed too loudly across the room. The light from the window caught her reflection, fractured by the glass. Funny, she thought, how worry can sound so much like shame when you've heard it all your life. In the background, her cousin Andrew was describing a surgery simulation with the confidence of a man who had never been questioned. The family listened as though he were narrating a miracle. Ethan's voice rose again, carried on the hum of approval. "A doctor saving lives. That's something you can be proud of." Emily didn't respond. She didn't need to. Years of silence had taught her that quiet could protect her better than words. The room shimmered with applause and admiration for everyone except her. Around her, success was measured in titles, salaries, and photographs framed on mantels. Her kind of work, slow, methodical, unseen, did not belong here. Her phone buzzed softly in her hand. A small vibration, almost unnoticed amid the noise. She glanced at the screen. From Sarah, Administrative Assistant message, Dr. Hartman, urgent. Grant application flagged for review, possible family connection. Emily's brows drew together just slightly. Then she locked the screen and slipped the phone back into her pocket. "Everything all right?" her mother asked from across the table, noticing the motion. "Just work," Emily said, smiling faintly. Nothing important, but her eyes lingered on the polished surface of the glass. Its reflection fractured again, as if the world around her was beginning, quietly, to crack. Outside, the sunlight flared against the windows, and inside the chatter rose once more. All warmth, all pride, all certainty. Emily stood in the middle of it, silent and composed, holding her drink like a shield. And in that stillness, beneath the comfort of family laughter, something in her began to shift. Dinner at the Hartman house always began as a performance. Dishes arrived like scripted cues, voices softened as if to honor something sacred. Everyone understood their role. The dining room glowed with a warm amber light. The good china was out, and Linda had placed a vase of pale hydrangeas in the center of the table. The scene wanted to be tender. It wanted to be a portrait of a family that loved each other. For a moment, Emily let herself believe in it. Roasted chicken, string beans and butter and garlic, freshly baked rolls torn open by familiar hands. The first few minutes were harmless. Stories, harmless laughter, Claire talking about a new client in Greenwich who wanted imported stone from Italy for an entire master bathroom. Uncle Richard making the same joke he had made for the last 8 years about retirement being harder work than working. Then, as it always did, the conversation tilted. Linda set down her fork, folded her hands, and turned to Emily with a practiced softness. The room quieted around that movement, the way water grows still before a drop falls. "You are 32 now, sweetheart," she said. Emily felt the air shift. She felt Claire straighten in her chair. She felt her father glance up from his plate. Her mother continued, her voice warm. "Too warm. The way you talk to someone you are afraid of breaking. Do you ever get tired of waiting?" Emily looked at her. "Waiting for what?" "For it to become something," Linda said gently. "Your work, your life, all of it." No one moved. Even the silverware on plates seemed to go silent. "I am not waiting," Emily replied. Her voice was calm. Her voice was steady. Only her hands beneath the table betrayed her. They were clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles were white. "We are not judging," Ethan said, before she could continue. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling as if this cost him effort. "We just do not want you to waste your best years on something that does not love you back." Emily blinked. There it was. Not an insult. A mercy. That was always how it was delivered. Claire reached for her water glass. She kept her tone light, almost apologetic. It is just that not everyone can afford to chase dreams forever. Emily turned her head toward her sister. Claire did not look cruel. Claire looked worried. Claire looked like someone holding out a hand to a person she believed was drowning. "I am not chasing a dream," Emily said softly. "I have a career." Her father let out a quiet sound that was not quite a laugh. "Not quite. Career is a strong word for something that still does not even cover your rent, Emily." Her mother winced. "Ethan, what?" he said, and his voice was almost pleading. "Someone needs to say it. We are not going to be here forever. We just want to know she will be all right." Emily felt something break loose in her chest. Small, almost soundless, like hairline glass. Linda turned back to her daughter, eyes shining with a different kind of pressure now. "We just want you to be secure," she said. "That is all. A home of your own, someone who will be there for you, a safety net." Her voice wavered. Emily swallowed. This, she thought, is how love hurts. Not as a knife, as a hand that will not let go of the version of you it prefers. "My work matters," Emily said. "When?" her father asked, and his voice was low. "When does it matter? When does it stop being potential and start being real? Tell me that, because at some point, what you could be is not enough anymore. Time is expensive. You cannot afford to lose a decade chasing theories while your peers build lives." "Ethan," Linda whispered, shaking her head. "Please." He pushed his plate back slightly. His jaw tightened. "I am not attacking her. I am talking about reality. Look around this table. Andrew is already saving lives in the hospital. Claire's firm is thriving. She has clients who fly her to see properties. She is building equity. She has a husband who can take care of the family if something goes wrong." He turned his eyes to Emily. "What happens if something goes wrong for you?" The question sat in the center of the table. Heavy, perfectly shaped, impossible to answer without bleeding. Emily opened her mouth, then closed it. She could have said, "I am not alone. I am responsible for hundreds of people. I carry budgets you cannot imagine. I am not a child." Instead, she said quietly, "Research takes time." Her father exhaled through his nose. Her mother let out a breath that trembled at the edges. "We just worry that time is taking you with it," Linda said. "That is all. You are so smart, Emily. You could do anything. You could go into private industry. Pharmaceutical companies would line up for someone like you. Regulatory affairs, strategy, medical liaison. Those are safe. Those are real. Those pay well. You could have insurance that does not scare us. You could have weekends. You could meet someone. Claire nodded, relief flooding her expression now that her mother had said it out loud. Yes, exactly. Nobody is saying you failed. We are saying you deserve something sustainable. Sustainable. Emily let the word settle. It felt like a verdict disguised as kindness. She looked from face to face. She saw no malice. None. She saw only fear. Her father's fear was practical. Mortgage. Insurance. The cost of an emergency room visit in this country. The brutal math of aging parents. He had lived long enough to know that safety was not a luxury. Safety was survival. Her mother's fear was social. The stories she told her friends, the way other women looked at her in the produce aisle, the quiet question of, and what does Emily do? She wanted an answer she could present like fine china. She wanted something other mothers would nod to with respect. Claire's fear was quieter. Loneliness. The loneliness she recognized in her sister's apartment with its second-hand furniture and half-read journals. The loneliness of someone who chose work over everything else and would not admit it was sometimes cold there. They believed they were saving her. That was the part that stung. It was not mockery that cut deepest. It was love, sharpened by fear, and handed to her like a medicine she had never asked for. "You think I am lost?" Emily said at last. No one answered. She felt the burn behind her ribs, the kind of ache that does not come from anger, but from exhaustion. A familiar ache. A decade old. Her phone buzzed in her lap. She lowered her gaze. The screen lit her face from below. New message from Sarah. "Director Hartman, the board is waiting. Conflict of interest protocol triggered. The names on the application match your parents." For a moment, Emily could not hear the room. The voices dulled, as if she had stepped underwater. Of course it would be them. Of course. Her father was still speaking. "We just do not want you to wake up at 40 and realize you threw away the years when you could have built something real." Her mother's eyes shone. "We are begging you to think about security. That is all this is. We love you. We are not ashamed of you. We just do not want you to end up alone and scared." Emily lifted her head. Alone. Scared. The words drifted through her like cold air. She looked at her mother, at the tiny lines of worry around Linda's eyes, at the way Linda's fingers trembled, resting on the edge of her napkin. She looked at her father, who hid his panic behind control. She looked at Claire, who sat upright in her chair and tried, with her soft, polished voice, to build a life for Emily using the rules she herself understood. "They think they are protecting me." Her throat tightened. She saw Andrew too. Andrew with his clean white smile and bright future. Andrew, who had never once had to justify his usefulness in front of a dining table of relatives. He stared down at his plate now, jaw clenched, not meeting her eyes. He was not enjoying this. None of them were enjoying this. That almost made it worse. Because if they had enjoyed it, she could have hated them for it. But they were hurting her out of love. And there is a particular kind of pain in being wounded by people who would swear they are holding you together. Her phone was still in her hand. The message still glowed. "Board is waiting. Parents' names found on grant application." The air in the dining room felt thin. "Excuse me," Emily said softly. Linda's head snapped up. "Are you leaving already?" Emily offered a small, careful smile. "I just need to take a call." Her father's mouth tightened. "On a Sunday? During dinner?" "It is nothing," Emily said. But her voice, for the first time that evening, carried something that made Claire look at her more closely. A thread of strain. a quiet tremor. Emily pushed back her chair and rose. As she stood, the chandelier light caught the side of her face. For an instant, she looked not like the uncertain daughter they all feared for, but like something controlled and distant, already somewhere else. She could feel their eyes on her as she crossed the room. She could feel the worry, the disapproval, the urge to call her back and fold her into the shape of the life they understood. In the hallway, away from the table, away from the warmth of the performance, Emily exhaled. Her hand was still shaking around the phone. Her reflection wavered in the glass of the framed family photo on the wall. A much younger version of her smiled back, a science fair ribbon pinned to her shirt. Her father's arm wrapped proudly around her shoulders. Something inside her cracked. It was small. It was private. It was final. Not because they had insulted her work, because they had never, not once, asked to understand it. She unlocked her phone. Her thumb hovered over Sarah's name. In the next room, she could still hear her father's voice, muffled now by distance. "We just need her to be realistic," he was saying. Emily closed her eyes. Her heart felt strangely hollow and heavy at once. The hollow was grief. The weight was resolve. She pressed call. The city unfolded before Emily like a vast, glimmering anatomy of light and motion. The highway stretched ahead in ribbons of silver, its edges blurred by the drizzle that had begun to fall. Raindrops scattered across the windshield, illuminated by the streetlights in trembling streaks of gold. The rhythmic hum of the tires against the wet road filled the silence inside the car. She drove without music, without words, only the sound of the rain and the faint echo of her father's voice repeating in her mind. "We just want you to be secure." The lights of Boston rose in the distance, towers shimmering through mist. Bridges like silver veins stretched over the dark river. Each mile she traveled drew her farther from the smallness of that living room and closer to the world she had built with her own hands. Yet beneath the calm that cloaked her face, something inside her still ached. Not with anger, but with a deep, exhausted tenderness. They had meant well. That was what made it hurt. She turned into the parking structure of the Hartman Ashford Institute, the headlights slicing through the rain-slick concrete. The automatic gate lifted at the sight of her license plate, and she descended into the quiet, gleaming cavern of the private level. A plaque by the elevator read, "Reserved, Dr. Emily Hartman, Director." Her reflection wavered in the polished metal of the elevator doors. For a heartbeat, she saw herself as they did, the quiet daughter who had never met expectations. And then, as the doors opened, she stepped into the person she truly was. The top floor awaited her in perfect stillness. The corridor was lined with framed photographs, her research team, smiling in lab coats, a ribbon-cutting ceremony, the photograph from the day she had signed the first endowment agreement. The air smelled faintly of sterilized steel and blooming lilies from the reception desk. Sarah, her assistant, rose as soon as she saw her. "Dr. Hartman," she said, her voice both relieved and hesitant. "The board is already in session. They wanted to begin with the conflict of interest case." Emily nodded, her tone composed. "Then we will address it with transparency." Sarah hesitated. "Before you go in, there is something you should know." Emily turned. "That clinical trial you designed last year, the pediatric one combining immunotherapy and targeted radiation, the results came in this morning. The boy Nathaniel is in remission." For a moment, the world seemed to still. Emily closed her eyes, and in that silence she saw the boy's face, pale and fragile in the hospital bed, smiling despite the bruises on his arms. His mother's hands trembling as she whispered, "Please, anything that helps." A warmth rose in Emily's chest, quiet and steady. "Thank you," she said softly. "That is the real victory." When she entered the boardroom, 15 faces turned toward her. Doctors, scholars, executives, men and women who carried entire fields of science in their hands. The long table gleamed beneath recessed lights. Outside, the rain painted soft trails across the panoramic windows overlooking the Charles River. "Dr. Hartman," said Dr. Reeves, her chief of staff, standing as Emily approached. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "Of course," Emily replied, taking her seat at the head of the table. "I understand there is a matter requiring my recusal." Dr. Reeves inclined her head. "Yes. The fellowship application submitted by your nephew, Andrew Keller, has triggered our conflict of interest protocol. The committee has already been notified, and you have been officially removed from the review process." "That is as it should be," Emily said. A pause followed. The board members exchanged brief glances, the tension in the room coiling like a wire. Dr. Patterson, one of the senior advisors, folded his hands. "There is also the issue of comments made by your family during their communication with the Institute. Some of our partners have become aware of it. Dismissive statements about the value of research can reflect poorly on our public image." Emily's face remained calm, though her chest tightened slightly. "They did not understand what we do," she said. "Ignorance is not malice. It is an opportunity to educate." Dr. Reeves smiled faintly. "That is generous." "It is necessary," Emily replied. "If we want to bridge the gap between science and society, we must begin with empathy, even when it wounds us." A murmur of agreement rippled across the table. Dr. Morrison, the deputy director, spoke next. "Then our course is clear. The committee will proceed independently with the fellowship decisions. We will also publish a statement, not naming anyone, but reinforcing the value of basic research and its essential role in clinical progress." Emily nodded. "Make it educational, not defensive." The discussion shifted to funding allocations, ongoing trials, and logistical updates. But beneath it all lay the quiet understanding of what had just transpired. A director choosing principle over pride, professionalism over personal pain. When the meeting concluded 2 hours later, Emily gathered her notes. The board members stood one by one, offering nods of respect before filing out. Dr. Reeves lingered by the door. "You handled that beautifully," she said. Emily gave a faint smile. Integrity is not measured when it is easy. Reeves hesitated, then added, "Your parents' comments. Some of the staff were angry on your behalf. Would you like us to respond privately?" "No," Emily said, her tone gentle but final. "They will understand in time. The work speaks for itself." Reeves regarded her for a moment, then nodded. "You are your father's daughter, but also something entirely your own." When she was alone again, Emily walked to the window. The city shimmered beneath the rain, and the river flowed like molten glass through the heart of Boston. The office around her was quiet, lined with her published papers, the soft hum of machines carrying on the work she had begun years ago in a basement lab. Her phone buzzed on the desk. A new message from Claire. "Mom is devastated. We are so sorry. Please call when you can." Emily stared at the screen for a long moment. Her reflection glowed faintly in the glass, blurred by the faint pulse of the notification light. She set the phone down. She turned her gaze back toward the city, the soft silver horizon, the steady rhythm of the rain. In the distance, the river caught the last traces of daylight and scattered them like broken stars. Her thoughts were calm now. No bitterness, no triumph. Only peace. They will learn in their own time, she thought, and I will keep building what they once called impossible. The intercom chimed softly. "Dr. Hartman," Sarah's voice said. "The director of the National Institute of Health is on line 1. He would like to congratulate you on the new trial results." Emily smiled, her voice steady. "Put him through." As the line connected, she sat at her desk, the city's light reflecting in her eyes. The weight of the day settled upon her, not as a burden, but as a reminder of what it meant to lead without resentment, to build without applause, to forgive without forgetting. Outside, the rain eased. The river shimmered, calm and endless, and inside the office that bore her name, Emily Hartman began to speak, not to defend herself, not to prove her worth, but to continue the work that mattered, because for the first time in years, she no longer needed them to see her. She simply needed to keep saving lives. There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than any applause, when vindication does not arrive in the roar of victory, but in the steady rhythm of one's own heartbeat. Emily Hartman did not win by proving her family wrong. She won the day she realized she no longer needed to. For years, she had carried their expectations like invisible weights. Each word of concern a thread binding her to a version of herself she had already outgrown. Yet, in that quiet office overlooking the Charles River, surrounded by the hum of machines that guarded human hope, she understood something profound. Recognition is fleeting, but purpose endures. Her family's laughter, their doubts, even their eventual remorse. All of it faded into something smaller than forgiveness. Not because they deserved it, but because holding on to resentment would have chained her to the same narrow vision that once dismissed her. Emily's greatest act of defiance was not power, nor success, nor wealth. It was peace. The truest victories are often invisible, measured not in headlines or fortunes, but in lives quietly changed by persistence no one believed in. Somewhere, a child named Nathaniel slept peacefully because of her research. That single truth outweighed every dinner table judgment, every moment she had been told to be realistic. The world did not need to see her shine for her work to matter. The light was never for them. It was for the ones it could reach. And perhaps that is the lesson buried within her story. That your worth is not a reflection of how loudly others approve, but of how steadfastly you continue when no one is watching. There will always be voices telling you to slow down, to fit in, to settle. There will always be people who love you, yet cannot understand the shape of your dreams. But the quiet conviction that drives you forward, that is yours alone. Guard it. If this story stirred something in you, a memory, a question, a spark of recognition, share it below. Tell us about the moment you chose to stand by your truth, even when no one believed in it. And if you wish to journey further into stories that remind us of who we are when the world forgets, stay close. Subscribe, not for the next tale, but for the echo of courage that lives in each one. Because in the end, it is not the noise of the crowd that defines a legacy. It is the soft, enduring light of those who keep working, quietly, faithfully, long after everyone else has stopped looking.